Good morning. So, John, welcome. I'm gonna start by introducing you. John Evangelista serves as the Director of Operations for Groundwork Elizabeth, where he oversees a wide range of urban agriculture, climate resilience, and green infrastructure projects. Under his leadership, Groundwork Elizabeth established New Jersey's first microforest in 2021 and has since expanded to multiple sites throughout Elizabeth, targeting high need areas that lack tree cover. Today, he will introduce the Miyawaki Method, a way to reforest our environment by creating dense, fast growing microforests. John, welcome to the Native Plant Society Fall
Thank
Conference.
you. Thank you very much, Kim. I appreciate that. I'm going to share my screen here and get this presentation up and loaded. And then I would love to talk a little bit about everything, really. Everything microforest related. Um, but I just wanted to take a few minutes before we start to introduce myself. My name's John Evangelista. I work for a environmentally focused nonprofit, 501c3 out of Elizabeth, New Jersey, called Groundwork Elizabeth. We service Elizabeth focused, but we do work throughout the state to do a bunch of different work, and we'll do a little bit as we move forward. I want to thank everybody, thank the Native Plant Society of New Jersey for having me here today. I'd also like to thank you all for this mini grant program that you have. We really need to get natives all over the place, as many as we can. So thank you all very much for that. As far as Groundwork Elizabeth, again, we're a 501c3. We have four focus areas, which we mainly shoot to put all our attention in. Number one is youth programming. We have rivers, trails, and brownfield program as well. Our strongest area is probably in urban agriculture. We have a small farm behind the Elmora Public Library in Elizabeth, which is a demonstration farm. We have schools come. Anybody is allowed to come there. We do classes and programming throughout the city. We grow 15,000 vegetable plant starts in the beginning of the year to service community gardens. So if you all have a community garden and you need some plants, by all means, please reach out to me. That's a main focus of what we do. And our other area is climate resilience, and just about everything we do focuses under climate resilience. These microforests actually fall under that too. We have a large air quality network that we're building down in Elizabeth, and with the hopes of bringing it to the state at some point in time. There's just a lot of things involved in what we do. We're very much a youth-based organization, so we have youth in a lot of what we do. And that's a little bit about me and my background. I'm going to jump into this microforest, my microforest presentation. This is actually a very big deal as we talk about these microforests. And what we're going to talk about today is what they are, how to plant them, the Miyawaki method that we use, and the benefits of them. And let's just jump right into it. For anyone who does not know what a microforest is, just bear with me. There we go. So a microforest, it's an innovative and effective method of planting trees. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Again, it's an innovative and effective method of planting trees, and by doing it, the main focus of it is that it will increase carbon mitigation, and it will produce oxygen. We tend to put these in underserved communities where there's a lack of trees. They're extremely biodiverse, and there's a lot of benefits that come along with this, and we'll get into these as we go through. Aside from the carbon mitigation and the oxygen producing, biodiverse, extremely biodiverse. How can house within the first year to 2 years of being built, 500 or so different species of animals that can come in and take care of these some of the problems that we have and help heal the environment. Um, what we focus on doing with these is we use the Miyawaki method. The Miyawaki method is it's a great method, and we'll jump into that a little bit just in a few minutes. And I want to explain a little bit about the purpose of why we do this. And it is a restoration of damaged neighborhoods that we like to address new methods of changing these around. In Union County alone, if you look at the county from the left to the right, it goes from green, full green tree canopy to complete barren, impervious coverage on the right side in Elizabeth. If you look at Elizabeth as a square, the top of Elizabeth is the Newark Airport. The right of it's the second largest seaport in the world. And underneath the bottom of the square is all of the gas companies in New Jersey. So we're kind of surrounded by it, these environmental issues of many different kinds. So what we did in groundwork is we were part of, in 2018, we were part of a network. We have a larger network. We are one of 23 trusts nationwide, um, covered by Groundwork USA, which is our, we don't say a parent organization, but they do oversee the trusts and manage the trust. We all work independently of Groundwork USA, but they are kind of the overseer, and it builds a good network across the nation of environmentally focused nonprofits. And what we did in 2018 is we took the old redlining maps and we've overlaid them uh, over the current maps of the redlined areas. And those are the areas of our focus where we try to build these microforests. They're the most underserved communities um, throughout Elizabeth and beyond. The 23 trusts that I had mentioned we work with before all have done this study of the redlined areas and the redlined communities, and we all found out that they tell the same story across the country, and that is that these are the areas where all the housing authorities were built over the years. Um, the projects are now in this generation. They call them, we're with the projects. They're extremely taxed environmental justice communities, severe heat islands, prone to flooding, and these are the areas that we focus in with this, the microforests, along with our air quality work. So, as we had mentioned before, the Miyawaki method is the method that we use. So, Akira Miyawaki is a Japanese botanist, and he started to look at how trees would work if they were planted densely. And he found that in degraded land and degraded areas, that if you overplant the area, the trees fight for a viability. And because of that, the growth rate increases. And the beauty of what happens in these forests is that within 3 to 5 years, if planted correctly, they're completely self-sustainable. They produce as much carbon and uh, they sequester as much carbon and produce as much oxygen as a forest 50 years or older of the same size. So as you think about that and how that works in areas that don't have the land or the space available to do these, you could plant these as small as like 2 to 3 parking spaces or as large as you want to. And some of the benefits of the microforests. The picture here on the screen is the first one we ever planted. This forest now, and I'm sorry I don't have a comparison picture, is going into its 5th year, and you can't see through it anymore. That's how big and how dense it is. Um, But the benefits of the microforest as we go down the line are, carbon capture, oxygen production are, of course, the main ones, extremely biodiverse. There's other aspects of this that come into play as well, too, especially in urban areas. Uh, they reduce heat islands immensely. They control stormwater runoff. You're creating habitats for insects and birds, and in the cities, there's a real lack of a place for migrating birds to go as well too. Uh, it's just a fantastic option all around. On this particular forest that you see in the picture here, we're going to start putting bird cameras in because we have realized that there was 12 species of birds identified in the microforest over this past summer that have very rarely been seen in Elizabeth or around the cities. So it's just such a great project to do in your area. They clean the air. They work as a windbreak. They definitely build and rebuild soil structures as well. Um, So the carbon capture, we'll talk a little bit about all the benefits here of the things as we go through. 4 years of growth, a meter of the Miyawaki forest can sequester like three kilos of CO2 annually. And that's just the tip of the iceberg with these. They're amazing. Again, all native plants. We fixed the soil. We'll get into that as we get into how we plant them and other things. Oxygen and air quality. The production of oxygen again in a forest of the same size that you plant is unbelievable. They absorb NOx, and we could definitely calculate, and we're working on this with Kane University. As we started planting these forests, Kane University has been working with us to create just to make sure that everything that they say is going on or we say is going on under the soil is actually happening as well. And we're having our first report now after 4 years of forests, and the numbers they're just right on track. Everything that Miyawaki said was going to happen is actually happening. Again, we spoke about the biodiversity, but it'll provide an initial home for 500 species of insects. Uh, each species of a native tree can actually provide a haven for 80 species of insects that are unique to that particular tree. And as we plant these, we don't just plant one type of tree in here. Depending on the size of the forest, our first one, we have 25 different species of trees and 260 different trees planted in a 2,000 square foot area. So as we look into these and we get more into how you build these, they are extremely dense. The stormwater runoff control for areas again that flood, especially areas with large impervious coverage, they can process up to 150 liters of water runoff during a storm. And it's every 10 square feet of microforest. So they definitely work. We have used these to control stormwater, and we've tried to use these to stabilize erosion control. And they're working tremendously in those areas as well. Some of the things we didn't realize when we plant these is that they bring a noise barrier in the inner city as you're doing your day to day. You don't realize this, and I actually haven't realized this working in Elizabeth too much until we built the forest, and you can actually tell. But there's constant traffic rolling all the time in the city, and people don't have a place to go where they can get that little break. There's not many parks or forests in Elizabeth. In fact, in Elizabeth, there's one native forest left, and it's in a park. so it won't be torn down, and we use that to do a control it to the microforests as well. Um, so let's jump in a little bit to the building of the microforests. This is where it gets extremely interesting for me. I would love to talk more and encourage everyone to look into these. And again, I'm always available if anybody needs help or direction with these. I would love to jump in and talk more about these forests and how to get them in and where to get them in. Uh, Before I get into building them, I want to talk a little bit about how we got involved. The New Jersey Conservation Foundation had reached out to us back in 2021 with this idea, and they said, "Do you think you could put one in Elizabeth? We would love to do it." And we said, "Yeah, that seems great. We would absolutely love to be in." And they said, "Okay, it's the deal. It's October. We're going to get this done by the end of the year." So we were like, "Oh." And at that point in time, I jumped into the Miyawaki method. I just jumped into it. I started reading about it, tried learning about it, how to do it. We had great direction on what was going on with that. And basically, you change the soil a little bit. It's not a full remediation because the trees will then handle the remediation of the soil. But what we do is we do a soil test and we measure the what's going on in the ground. And at that point in time, we make a determination of to how much soil comes out. It's usually between 12 to 24 inches of soil. And we replace it with a proprietary blend that kind of mimics the forest floor. And then once we lay that in, we start, when it's all finished and established, we, in the fall, use leaf litter, and we leaf litter the whole thing, and that kind of acts as um, keeps the soil in place and acts as a little bit of a mulch and a renourishment of the soil. So we're going to jump into how to build these, and I'm very interested to see if anyone has any questions when we're done. So we're going to just jump into a little bit of the design aspect of this. Um, so each forest is actually unique and very site specific, and there's a few design elements. First is the site selection. So for us, when we select a site, we won't put a forest on a site until we know it won't be touched for at least a minimum of 50 years. So what does that mean? We have to go to the city to find the land that's available. If there's any organizations or societies or companies that own land that'll let us build on. But we do need to know, we do need to have a 50-year type of lease on all the forests that we built. So for us, our first one was at our micro farm, and we do have a 100-year lease on that property as of right now. So we do know that that's not going to be taken away from us. As we're looking at this and looking around, we're finding, okay, this could be a problem. How do we address and find these sites? We don't want to build this forest and in 5 years have a developer come in and say, oh, we're going to put an apartment building on here. So what did we do? We went to the city and we went to our local housing authority, and we asked the local housing authority if they'd be interested in letting us put these in some of their land. And they were very interested in it. And we found that as well as just going in and planting a forest, if we educated the community around this and the people in the housing authority as to what this is, well, let's see how that goes and how that works. We now have microforests in 2 different housing authority locations. The local residents or senior citizens, they come out there, they take care of it, they watch it, they oversee it for us. It was just a great idea for us to start planting these and getting traction on these and creating awareness. It worked out tremendously, and we have a partner with our housing authority now who wants to continue to put these up, and we're going to address and present this to HUD with the hopes of all the housing authorities, looking into something like this. So site selection is extremely important um, for this project. Soil testing. We come in, we test the soil, and we see how bad it is. And at that point in time, we make the determination of how much soil has to come out and what we need to do, if anything, to the soil to amend it in any way. We do keep track of the local site conditions. We look at what, do they need to be watered? Is it a dry site? And what's going to happen? And the feasibility is always part of the study. If will it go? Will it? How will it work? Who will maintain it? What are going to be the guidelines for doing that? And I will tell you this: as far as maintaining these sites go, when we put the first one in 2021, that next summer we had a 2-week drought, got extremely hot. That's the only time I've had to water one of these forests. Um, they are extremely self-sustainable, and if they're planted correctly, they really take care of themselves for the most part. Second, is the tree selection. You always want to have um, the correct amount of trees, the correct size of the trees, and most importantly, they're all native. Everything we plant in these microforests are native trees. We make it a point to be sure that if we are going to reforest areas, that they're all done with native trees. And we work very closely again with the biologists from the Conservation Foundation to make sure that this is all going well and everything is working as it should be. Getting back to the soil remediation and site preparation. Again, between 12 and 24, most of the time it comes in between 18, 24 inches of native soil has to be removed. We replace it with a proprietary blend. The proprietary blend is no big secret. It basically comes down to about a third topsoil, a third sand, and a third peat moss. In general, each area is different. In some cases, you may want to use amendments. We don't. We use everything natural when we do ours, so the leaf litter is a big part of what we do. In our first one, we were able to go down to the pine lands and take some of the leaf litter off the forest floor, which helped kind of inoculate the soil to start. We did that on one of our microforests as a test. We do have currently 5 microforests that we've planted over throughout Union County, 4 in Elizabeth and 1 in Rahway, which we just did last week, and we can definitely talk more about that. As I mentioned before, we're working with Kean University. They actually come in and on all of our sites are measuring what's happening under the ground. They're measuring carbon sequestration, they're measuring the oxygen production, and they're measuring what's going on with the soil under the ground. Again, we wanted to do this, but a lot of what we do is data-based, and we like to make sure we have data on everything that we do. So the fact that the university was able to work with us to do this has just been a fantastic process all around. They are out there every 2 weeks to 3 weeks taking samples, and the beauty of how this worked out for us, and it just kind of worked out this way. We didn't plan it till later in the process, but at this point we're going into about, again, we have 5 microforests, but they're basically the first 3 were planted a year apart from each other, so we're able to focus on what's happening on this one in year 4, but also, well, this one's in year 2, what's happening over here in year 2? Is it the same thing? Is it the older forests, getting more data out of that. So it's just been a fantastic experience with Kane to have them with us to go through the process of monitoring this. And I would love to get the report back to the Native Plant Society as soon as we have it finalized to just give a basis of what this is and how we do it. So we're going to plant these forests and we're going to put a large amount of trees into the ground. And what do we do for maintenance? How do we look at that? So part of what we do, Groundwork Elizabeth, with the microforests is that excuse me, we monitor for the first 3 years every forest we put in. We want to get it to the point of self-sustainability. So we make sure that the soil is okay and the trees don't need water, um, which is basically for the first 2 years. And again, you'll only water in a severe drought situation. So we also weed the forest the first couple of years. We go on the ground. We don't let the understory kind of take off until the lower level plants have achieved their level of viability until we get the whole bottom shaded out, which usually takes about 2 to 3 years before everything fills in. We use no chemicals, we use no pesticides, we use no inorganic fertilizers in the forest whatsoever. We don't cut or prune the forests. We monitor them every 2 months. We check their growth. We make sure everything's healthy. Part of the Miyawaki process, as I'm coming here telling everybody, so we have 2,000 square feet and we put about 260 trees in there. It doesn't seem like you do this with the expectation that there will be some loss as they grow. And that is also part of the Miyawaki method. You have to expect that some of these trees will not make it as they go. And that's fine, that's okay. It's all part of the process. These grow very naturally. We don't, after the first 2 years of maintenance and tree establishment, at that point in time, we back off. We let the understory grow. We let the weeds grow. The forest will eventually shade itself out. Um, our oldest forest now has a complete understory. It looks fantastic. It's shading out most of the weeds that grow. And I say most, not all. There is mugwort running wild through everything. So at that point in time, I do go in and we do try to pull the mugwort out just so it doesn't take over, and just to try to keep a general maintenance on that. And then once they hit the 2 to 3 year mark, we let it go and we let it ride. And to date, they're doing very, very well. One of the biggest aspects of putting these microforests in is educating the community and the people around it. We have found, again, I'm going to go back to our housing authority plantings. We have found out that without the help of the community, we don't want these forests to be an area of problems in the community. So as we are building these moving forward and we realize we're putting them in areas, we're actually putting some of them will have a seating area inside of it. The forest will be built kind of in a horseshoe shape where you'll be able to get benches in there, sitting areas. We do put signage on all our forests to talk about our partners, make sure everybody knows who we're working with to create these because they are a process and they do cost money to put in. We were lucky enough to receive funding for the last 4 forests that we did, so we were able to get a grant through our parent company, Groundwork USA, who received some funding from the Bezos Foundation for environmental change, and we were able to put 4 of these microforests up throughout the city, and it really put us in fantastic spot to be in. Um, I can't stress enough the value of bringing the community into these projects when you build them. They they take complete ownership of these. I have people coming up to me from Elizabeth saying, "Never in a million years did we ever think that we would see a forest grown in the middle of our city." It's an amazing thing to see the youth going out there and picking up the garbage in there because they don't want to have they don't want it to look like it was trashed. And because of that, that stemmed one of our youth programs to do an anti-litter campaign around our forests where they asked the city to bring in garbage cans and recycling bin. And, it's just such a fantastic tool to build community engagement around also. Um, I can't stress enough how much of a great project this is. I also can't stress enough how easy they are to do. They are not as hard. Now, I also say that I have a bit of a construction background. You do have to get a machine in there and dig out, again, 18 to 24 inches of soil on everything that you're doing. But other than that, you spread the land, you dig it out, put new soil in, you spread it out, and you start planting the trees, and they all go in very easily. And it's just a fantastic way to do things. And as the slide stresses, repeat as often as possible. So I can't say enough about again these forests and how to do it. We are trying to engage as many people as we can to recognize what we've done here, how we've done it, what we're doing, and we want to make this available to other communities as often as we can. So I do want to just say on a note before we do this, my information is on the screen there. If there's any questions outside of our Q&A session uh, that anybody needs help with, if anybody's interested in having one of these in your community, we would love to help out in any way that we can. And we hope you guys get out there and have the ability to do some planting. And again, these could be as small as 2 to 3 parking spots, so they don't have to be huge. And fantastic project for any community. And we would love to be part of helping you and your community doing yours. So thank you all very much for your time here. And I hope we have some questions.
Hey, John, that was fantastic. I'm excited about this because as I mentioned to you a little bit earlier, I live in Jersey City. And, when you're living in a very dense, overpopulated city, this is so important. So, I'd love to ask you, where is the location in Elizabeth? And I'm sure there are a lot of people watching that would love to go and see it and check it out.
Absolutely. So we have a micro farm. It's the Groundwork Elizabeth micro farm. It's located at 740 West Grand Street behind the Elmora Public Library. Somebody's there all week long. People are on site. It's an open door policy. Anyone's welcome to go there. If anybody wants to come by and see the forest there, I would love to meet you there. I can show you around. We have 4 other locations in Elizabeth that have forests stemming from the one at the micro farm, which is 4 years old, to there's one we just planted about a week and a half ago. And at the housing authority, I can bring you to those locations too if we have the appointment set up. I just can't kind of walk into there. We can walk into there, but I do like to give them a little bit of a warning. And that's in the 2 housing authority locations. One of those is 3 years old, one is 2 years old. So if you guys want to come down and take a look at this, we can go see 4 or 3 2 and 1 year old forests, and you can see the difference in the progression of them, which is really cool. And we're in the process of actually doing a video, which I'll share with everyone as soon as we have it done about that.
Oh, that would be great. Maybe we can put something together. Um, so are there walking paths through the forest for people to, sort of enjoy the respite of the project?
So that's a great question, Kim. Thank you for that. Because in the beginning, no, there wasn't. We didn't put spaces for seating in there. We didn't put walking paths in there. And we realized as we built these that you need to do that. You need to, once you open this forest up for people to actually step inside of it, it becomes an outdoor classroom. It really does. The species of trees that are there, the insects, the bugs, the birds, the biodiversity, the science behind it. You really need to have those. And in these heat islands, the ability to actually step inside where it's shaded and potentially, as Kaziz was saying earlier, 20 degrees, 15 to 20 degree difference between inside the microforest and outside. In a heat island, that's almost like having air conditioning. Some
Yeah,
areas of Elizabeth, on an 80-degree day, you're fluctuating anywhere between 80 to 120 degrees in the areas that are heat islands, and to be able to have one of these in there that can bring that back down is just fantastic.
yeah. And we experienced that here too. Of course, we're your neighbor um
Absolutely.
in Jersey City, so that's so important to think about. We have a question about deer pressure. Do you have any issues with that in a densely urban area? Is that something you contend with?
So in the dense urban areas, we really don't have that. And that was one of our big concerns too. The deer are going to come in, and this is going to be a giant salad for them. Um, so in the inner city, we don't really have the problems with the deer. But I did recently just put one up in Rawway, and it's a little more, I don't want to say rural, but it's in a big grass area behind a school that does have a deer problem. So with that, we put up an 8 foot deer fence, temporary, around this until it establishes itself, and it'll probably be up for probably 2 years, and then we'll be able to take it down, and the forest will be able to sustain itself. When we plant these forests, a lot of people like to plant them with saplings. We go a step up from that. Where the smallest we'll put in the ground is like maybe a 1 gallon container, but we go from like a one no number one to a number 7 gallon container of plants um in these forests. So the trees are about 2 to 3 years old, the species when we plant them. So they do have a little bit stronger viability than just a dry root sapling. But it
Okay.
can be done with the dry root saplings. There's just a lot more maintenance that's involved with that.
And you went into the composition of the soil replacement, and we have a question from someone that's watching that said, "Can you go into the characteristics a little bit deeper?"
Sure. We want to try to mimic what you would find on the floor of the forest. Again, and that's not easy to do. These forests are 100, 200, 300 years old. So how can we mimic that? So you want a soil that drains well. It's a little bit more on the loamy side. And what we found is that basically, if we keep it around a third, and a third blend, third topsoil, third peat moss, and a third sand, you kind of get the consistency of the forest, and it is well draining. We use that soil as our base, and then the leaf litter, and as that breaks down and the leaves break down, they tend to inoculate. When we use the soil from the pine lands, that's leaf litter that's down there for years and years. So it does have its own value when you bring to it as a fertilizer. Again, we don't use synthetic fertilizers. You can definitely do that, um, if that's your option. It's not that it's wrong. It's just we don't use that process. We go with a more natural and organic feel. So we do get the leaf litter. We do work with the New Jersey Conservation Foundation, who has acres and acres out in the pine lands. So they allow us to go out there and collect sometimes, bags and bags of their leaf litter as to this time of year as the leaves are coming down, and we take what's out there and what's already broken down on the ground, and we bring it back and we kind of top dress the forests. It gives them a little bump in the spring.
This next question, I think, is important, and we're hearing more and more about the sociological studies of projects like this and beautifying neighborhoods and the mental health and well-being uh, statistics. Crime statistics are lowered when you add shade to some of these urban neighborhoods. What's your experience like, and what is research showing on your end?
So this is funny that you say this, and this is a question that's really near and dear to my heart. When I started, and we started building community gardens in the city, we received some funding from a government organization, and they wanted us to build this garden in basically in the projects. And when they came to us, they said to me, "Oh, we're going to build this garden, and crime's going to stop down there." And this was a very, very interesting area. It was not safe. We went in there, we built a 50-bed community garden. Um, and we were going to monitor what happened. And within 6 months, the neighborhood made a complete change, turnaround.
Mm.
A year and a half later, uh, there's people manning these beds. This garden's been out there now. I'm going to say we're going into its ninth year. Um, the crime rates considerably dropped. Uh, the people are out there. They're gardening, they're sharing vegetables with each other. This is a place it was a war zone out there. It was not an area where you would be walking around even in the daylight. So to see this transformation happen to me really changed my look on how these things work. And it's absolutely true. It will reduce crime rates. It'll get people outside more. And these microforests are doing the exact same thing. People are coming to these areas again to get a break from the noise. They find themselves in a much more peaceful state when they're out there. And now with the influx of the birds coming in, we found out that after about 3 or 4 years of the forests being established, that the birds start coming in, that you're actually sitting in a park-like atmosphere in the middle of a city, and it's the mental health aspect of it is fantastic. It really changes people's feeling all around.
I just think that's fascinating, and I love knowing that. I want to learn more about that for
It
sure.
it drives me. It really does.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Can you talk about where you source some of the trees?
I can absolutely tell you. I source everything from Pinelands Nursery. I've
Excellent.
had a
Oh,
wonderful experience with Pinelands. Um, Everything is native. It's all grown there. They come certified pest and disease free. And I've never had a bad experience. I have nothing critical to say about Pinelands. They've been a gift to us.
oh, they're wonderful. I'm sure many people watching today would agree with that assessment. Um, so just a few more questions before we wrap
Absolutely.
on and get to our next speaker. Do you label the trees? And if so, what kind of labels do you use that will have a long life?
So that's the trick question. We try to label the trees on the signage when we put the signage out there. We do give a list of the different species that are in there, and we use metal tree tags, but they go in the ground. They're they pin into the ground. What we're working on in the future is trying to get QR codes to where we could actually pin the trees with the QR codes near the trees. So when you go through, you can hit it with your cell phone. It'll give you a little experience of what the tree is, what type it is, Latin name, what it does, if it produces any fruit or berries, things like that. That's that's coming because we do want it to be known what we're planting and what's around.
Okay, and I think we are going to end it there. I see our next speaker coming in. And John, I just want to thank you so much. It's been very exciting presentation, and I'm definitely going to come and visit and hopefully
Oh, we
get
would
some other people together
love to
to
have
take a
you.
trip out.
And
Okay.
stay tuned for Jersey City, Kim. There's a lot coming there too. But I
Oh,
will inform you as soon as I have some more information. But we're looking at getting a microforest in there too. So I will definitely keep you informed.
excellent. Thank you so much. And I see Basil. Welcome, Basil. And I'm going
Thank
to
you,
ask
everyone.
our next, I think Cassis, our president, is going to come back on. So thank you, everyone.
I am going to come back on if I can figure out why my screen isn't sharing, but it should be 1 second. Let's try this again. Whoa. This is a little strange. Let's see. All right, well, for some reason, the full screen doesn't want to share in the least, so I'm just going to share this. And okay, I just wanted to show a couple of images here. I hope you can all see that. This is this week I managed to go to see another Miyawaki forest, which happens to be behind the Summit Community Center, which is not installed by John, but it's it provides another spot you can take a look at if you are interested in finding out more about projects like this. And this is a 2-year-old forest. So I was really impressed by how quickly this had grown up. And you can see this, this view. And most importantly for me, since some of you asked about deer, it was fenced, and you get an idea of like what a difference it makes to have planted this little Miyawaki forest, this tiny forest, as they call it, in this area. So fabulous work, and I do hope we can really create many more of these throughout the state. It's something that I really hadn't even known about until earlier this year, and you'd think I'm somewhat plugged in, but obviously not nearly enough. All right, I'm going to stop my screen share now. So